Couldn't we stay, or must you go? Couldn't we stay and watch the splashing rocks we throw? Only a fool would want to leave a paradise that I find whenever you're around. Only a fool.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis and to this celebration of the life of Carole Rydberg, a life that was marked by activism, music, gardening, and love of life. The life of a social justice warrior and political activist, a woman who lived a well-examined life that has left an indelible mark on the hearts and in the lives of her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and her many friends. I'm the Reverend Eulin or Julie Stoneberg, interim minister here at First Unitarian Society, and while I didn't know Carole, it's my honor to officiate today. This personal service was crafted by Carole's family, whose careful curation is evidence of the strong and loving relationship she had. Note that later in the service we'll offer not later in the service, but downstairs during lunch we'll offer a time for you to say a few words about Carole and what she meant to you if you would like to do that. You'll find washrooms down the hall to the left as you exit the assembly hall, and also downstairs near the room where there'll be lunch. And if you haven't already done so, please sign the guest book that's currently in the foyer, but I think we'll be moving downstairs after the service. And you are sure invited to stay for a delicious luncheon, which will be available, as I said, in our lower assembly hall. Either of the staircases that are just outside the doors that when you exit here take you down, or there's an elevator just to the left. And during the lunch, as I said, you can share stories and memories, either spoken or written on note cards. When Unitarian Universalists gather, we light a flaming chalice, the symbol of our faith. And Josh and Clancy Nolan have offered to light the chalice. So come on up. As they do so, I share words found in a poem about an Irish wake. Let us gather, hearts entwined, to celebrate a life, a love divine. Oh, dear one, a soul so bright, a testament to love and life's sweet flight. We share our memories, laugh and cry, recount the moments, days gone by. Your spirit lingers, a gentle breeze, the Irish wake forever at ease. With joy and sorrow, we'll raise our voice in honor of the life that was your choice. Oh, dear one, a love so true, a celebration of life in skies so blue. May the light of this chalice warm your spirits as you remember, mourn, and celebrate Carole's life. Unitarian Universalists claim one of the sources of our faith to be the prophetic words and deeds of those people who have lived lives of compassion and through whom we have witnessed the transforming power of love. We learn how to live by example, and Carole's life was a fine, shining example of how to live. As the tagline on the screen read earlier, a life well lived and well loved. We could point to her and say, look, here is what it looks like to live your values, to take action, to find joy, and to spread love. Carole A. Gaines Rydberg of Plymouth, Minnesota, died June 23, 2024, in Minneapolis. She was 86 years old. Born Carole Ann Colville on June 3, 1938, in Detroit, Michigan. Carole was a lifelong activist for many progressive causes, including civil rights, women's equality, and environmental issues. Her activism was primarily focused on peace. Over the years, she marched with Mothers for Peace, represented social workers as a lobbyist in St. Paul, and was an active member of Women Against Military Madness from its inception. She also coordinated campaigns for DFL candidates like her friend Paul Wellstone, so I'm sure she would be tickled to see his bus going back into action. She wrote countless letters and contributed passionate and frequent editorials to the local press. Some of those you can still find by searching the Star Tribune website, and many of them are on display tables for you to look at later. Indeed, Carole didn't ever tire of her work. Her passion was admirable. Carole strove always to make a difference. She succeeded 1,000 times over in both her wider activism and by personally hosting people from all over the world, including refugees and practically anybody who needed a place to stay. She had 4 children with her first husband, Michael Gaines, and gained an additional 5 kids when she later married Roger Rydberg in 1974. And Roger died in 2015. She helped raise several of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren and adored all of them. I have heard from folks here that the way in which Carole and Roger shared what they learned through their parenting trials and tribulations in such a large blended family was an inspiration and educational and helpful for others. In fact, they attended once an ESL class to talk about blended families, and apparently it was fascinating to the students there. She lived a remarkable and inspiring life. She'll be greatly missed by friends, her family, her boyfriend Doug, and everyone whose life she touched. And now she's no longer with us. You who loved her have lost her companionship, her friendship, her voice for change, her questioning spirit. How shall you find comfort? Here's a thought. I thought this was particularly appropriate because of her love of gardening. One of my colleagues has written about lying in a hammock under a tree and wondering about the afterlife and thinking, when I die, I want to have my ashes buried under this tree so that for one spring after another, my body can be part of this particular green. She says that she could feel her life flowing through the cells of a leaf and could feel that leaf opening to the warmth and life and could feel herself part of that green, and that made her happy. If that was the afterlife, she thought, she would be happy. You know, the hope of that kind of afterlife doesn't really take any leap of faith. It happens every day. The minerals and the water in a body can be soaked up through the roots of a tree, and in that way, what was human body will unfurl green in the sun. And this colleague, Meg Barnhouse, reminds us that there is not now, nor was there ever, any separation between the living and the dead. Those who remain and those who've gone before us are with us the whole time, in our cells, as strongly when alive as when they've become part of the leaves. So remember this. Carole is now a part of the leaves. You each carry within you something of who Carole was. You might not always remember it or feel that you can live up to everything that she was, But maybe once in a while you'll notice a particular green leaf, perhaps even touch it, and be reminded of all that she gave you. And now you must be the ones who ensure that her love and her integrity are carried forward. Take these things into your heart in this time of meditation and memory.
So my mom died, then politics got really weird. And it was impossible after the debate and then the handoff to Kamala Harris not to keep thinking of my mother and what she would make of this. And I thought, oh my gosh, I feel so bad Mom missed this. She would just be on the phone with me all the time, talking to everybody all the time about how things have changed for the Democrats. But also, mostly I was thinking, as I saw these national headlines when Governor Walz was selected to be the VP on the ticket, all I could think of is, if my mother could see that Peggy Flanagan was on deck to become the governor of Minnesota, she would so gavel. She would be over the moon. And that's what prompted me to reach out to the lieutenant governor, because I wanted her to know, one, about this service and my mom, but also how my mother would have been just so happy for her and proud of her. And I just had to reach out. Well, they reached back. I got a call from Paige, who works for her, and said, hey, I got your request. Normally it takes 8 weeks for us to even respond. But as soon as I told Peggy about it, I was just, all these tales came out of Peggy, just regaled with all these stories about Carole Rydberg and their early days and how she was beside her and what an incredible volunteer she was. And we'll let you know next week whether Peggy can make it. And if she can't, she'll send you a letter. I got that call, and the letter went in the mail. I said, pray that DeJoy comes through, and we get this letter, because we only had a week. And I don't trust the guy. So it came, and I get to share this letter from the office of Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. To the family of Carole Rydberg, I am so sorry to hear about the loss of Carole, and I want to express my most sincere sympathies to you during this difficult time. Carole was an incredible friend and ally of mine, especially when I was just beginning my career in the legislature. I will always be grateful for her dedication to our community, social justice, and the work she did to make Minnesota a wonderful place to live. While I'm not able to join you all today for the service, please know that I am thinking of you all and of Carole. Her kindness, passion, and support of women leaders is something that I will continue to carry with me. She will be greatly missed and forever be remembered in the hearts of all who knew her. Please accept my sincere condolences and know that you are in my thoughts and prayers. Yours in service, Peggy Flanagan, Lieutenant Governor.
Wow, this is a tough day. Just a little word adding to Susan's piece. Carole and I went down to the Indian Center on Franklin, where Peggy was making her announcement to run for lieutenant governor with the governor. And I'll never forget that night, because Peggy looked out, and here I sat with Carole, and she just came right off the podium and reached out and grabbed her. So I thought, wow, that's a close friendship. Okay, how do I do this in a short order? I'll do the best I can. I lost my wife of many, many years, almost 60-some years of marriage and going together from high school. And so I decided to go to this grief support group. And I felt almost like a teenager because I kept seeing this lady, this cute lady. Now, she wasn't in my group. The way we organized, we would sit and have coffee and talk, and then we'd break into small groups, small clusters. She was in a different cluster. But I soon met her and learned some stuff about her and about Roger. And Roger had died a year before in 2015. My wife died in 2016. So then this place, this room right here, has a real strong meaning in our connection, because the next Memorial Day weekend, FUS held a gathering of people making speeches about, I don't even remember what it was about, but you know, one of those weekends where you had a Saturday and Sunday and a bunch of speeches about people living better with one another and that. And so I came in and I sat down right over in there. And I looked across, and there weren't a lot of people there. I mean, you know, that's not a big draw on Labor Day weekend to go listen to people talk. But there was this cute lady over here on this other side. And she looked at me and I looked at her, and this is like two teenagers in high school where they see each other in the lunchroom, and you know, and they begin to think, well, maybe we ought to actually talk. So at break time, we had a cup of coffee or something, and we wandered over to the window, and we were looking out the window. Well, it turns out in the art center there, where you have all the outdoor art, there had been erected a wooden scaffolding. And those of you who live here and who knew about that, the scaffolding went up, and it was an artist's representation of the 1860s scaffold that was used to hang native warriors. And this fellow from California did this thing, and he sent it out to, I think it was over in Europe, and then it came back here. Well, along the street outside of this was a whole bunch of folks that were demonstrating against this scaffolding, because two things. One is all of this land is Dakota land, even as we stand here now. And what was happening there was that was a pretty serious commemoration of a very serious event. Originally, there were 100 that were supposed to be hung, but Abraham Lincoln decided only 31 would do, so they just hung 31. So, but I stood there and I said to Carole, she was standing there, and I said, well, maybe we ought to burn that son of a bitch down. And I use language like that when I get excited. And I said, we could meet tonight at 2 a.m. and I'll bring a can of gasoline and you bring a box of matches. And we'll meet and then we'll go burn that thing down. So, sure, she says. And you know, I didn't know Carole all that well, but I kind of got a sense of her at that point. And but I went on home that night, and then I got to seeing this vision of this pretty lady sitting in this red Toyota down on the street, holding a box of matches, waiting for her, you know, compatriot to come by. And I thought, oh, that's not a good thing, because by that time I had heard that she had a history of having been arrested and booked, along with a couple of Catholic nuns, and I think the then wife of the city police chief, Tony Boza, yeah, Boza, Ms. Boza. And she was quite proud of that. They were demonstrating against building weapons for war. And so anyway, I called her, because by then I had her phone number, and I said, you know, maybe we ought to let this thing cool a little bit, and there'll be a better solution. and she said, yeah, that's probably a smarter thing to do. Well, it turns out that they eventually added to the board at the museum, and then they decided to take the scaffolding down, and in its place there is like a marble and concrete center that's been created whereby they can have celebrations and commemorations and so forth, which is a Native American site now that was set up. So, and which Carole and I went to celebrate its dedication. She liked a lot of that, and I have a strong connection with the Lakota Sioux tribe since my son is native Lakota. Okay, so, but back to our story together, that she talked me into coming here to FUS because she and Roger had been here for up to 40 years, as I understand. Is that right, John? Something like that, yeah. And he used to run the bookstore downstairs. He would come in on Sunday and open the bookstore and sell books to people and that. And she was just thick as thieves with the other little old ladies here. Yeah, they did lots of stuff. I attended three of their events, and it was good. So. Yeah, she's a wonderful lady, and God, I'm going to miss her. Just something terrible. All this political stuff. Every time I hear somebody talk or something, I want to grab the phone and call her. And we used to do that hour after hour, and can't do that anymore. But so I'm thinking about a piece. Oh, I should just touch on this, because I promise I won't do the whole thing, but she loved to go to karaoke, and Marty and Chloe, convinced us that's what we ought to do. So we started going to karaoke at the Robbinsdale, yeah, American Legion, yeah, that was it, Friday nights and so forth, and I don't mind singing once in a while, Sorry about that. And I never could get Carole to sing. She just didn't want to do that. She didn't think she was quality enough, but that's all right. So, but one of her favorite songs was a song by Bob Dylan, resident genius here from Minnesota, and it's about a big brass bed, and it goes something like, "Lay, lady, lay, lay across my big brass bed." Well, there's another little story about brass beds that goes with this. At our recovery group, we used to go out for coffee, and somebody mentioned something about a brass bed. How it came up, I don't know. And then, of course, Carole in her style, and if you know her, she's like, "Oh, Doug has a big brass bed," and but that's her honesty just would burst forth when you least expected it. But yeah, she had a big brass bed. So I had to let you know about that. So I'm going to try my hand at this. Peace came upon me, and it leaves me weak. So sleep, silent angel, go to sleep. Sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe. And I love you. Thank you.
I'd like to share with you a poem by Linda Ellis called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend, and he referred to the dates on her tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of her birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said that what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that she spent alive on earth, and now only those who loved her know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So, think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged if we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way other people feel and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? That dash, that time between our birth and our death is the time we have. It's the only time we have to love, to live our values, to pay attention to what matters. And as we continue to reflect on Carole's life, may we all remember how it is that we're spending our dash.
I am not a public speaker. I am nervous as all get out. But I love Carole, and I want to be here for her. Whenever I think of her, I want to smile, and then I want to cry. Because I loved her, and I miss her. I miss her energy in this world, and I miss her physical presence in my life. I can remember the exact moment I met Carole, or at least the moment we first connected. It was in the dining room at Camp Unistar in 1998. It turns out we later discovered that we were actually together at Unistar 9 years before that, but neither one of us ever remembered seeing the other one there. Dang, all those extra years we might have had together. As I was saying, July of 1998, we were both there for the Art and Photography Week led by the Steinbergs and Wintermutes, whom many of you may know because they were members here. We were being taught the basic guidelines for painting with watercolors. Carole was having a great time, but I was struggling. Watercolors have never worked for me. She saw my distress and she offered me some of her pastels to try. I loved them, and everything changed after that. No, not because I became a great artist, but because she had reached out to me, and she continued to do so. You know that thing that happens when people meet each other and say, oh, we should get together sometime, or yeah, I'll give you a call, and then they never do? Well, I'm one of those people. Carole was not. Within a few days after returning home from camp, Carole called and invited me to her house to do art together. I looked at my old calendars recently, and yes, I have a lot of them, and I saw that it was exactly 10 days after we got back from camp that I packed up my art supplies and headed up to Carole's. And every week after that, for years and years and years, we got together. Whoops. We didn't always do art, but we always enjoyed being together. In the beginning, I did pastels and Carol did watercolors. She got tired of doing art just for art's sake and started making cards for family and friends. A big family and lots of friends. I bet some of you got some of those cards. Oops, I have one here. Here we go. So here's one. Whoops. I'll put these out later if you want to look at them. This is one of her watercolors that she did, and then she made a card out of it, and I know that she sent some of them to all of you at some point. She often painted pictures of flowers, including pansies. This is not her card, but this is a card she sent me. She later claimed that my playful spirit had inspired her to put faces on the pansies. I told her how my mother had always given me pansies on my birthday when I was a child. After my mother died, Carole started giving me pansies every year on my birthday. She once told me that she had always wanted a bleeding heart bush, so one year I gave her one for her birthday. It's still growing strong in her front yard. Messages of love given and received. Over time, we branched out. Carole painted signs to carry with her to many of the peace marches, protests, and rallies she attended. And the one out there that is for Northwest Neighbors for Peace with a dove on it, I sat across the table from her when she painted that. And the picture she gave to Clevia that is out there, I was across the table when she painted that. It was just so nice to be with her for so long. I started knitting comfort shawls and hats for the homeless, and Carole took up needlepoint and or cross-stitch, and she made wall hangings or pillow shams or other things for friends to hang on their walls or to welcome children and great-grandchildren into this world. She cross-stitched their birthdays, their names, maybe their weights, I don't know. Anyway, that's what she did. One time she made me one. Whoop, I keep hitting that thing. A bookmark that says, "My pal, Nora." If you've ever seen cross-stitch, it's tiny. I don't know how she ever did this, but I love it. And she always called me her pal. No one in my life ever called me that before or since, but I was her pal, Nora. Lucky me. A side note. Usually I arrived at Carole's around lunchtime, and she always wanted to feed me before we got down to doing business. Somehow she found out that I loved peanut butter, but that I never bought it for myself because I love peanut butter too much. But I only liked the crunchy kind, and they only had the creamy kind. So she went out and bought Skippy crunchy peanut butter just for me, and she kept it at her house because I could not be trusted with it at my house. So I would come up there, and we'd get out toast, peanut butter, coffee, and do all of that, and then we'd sit down and do art or make signs or knit or do whatever we were going to do. Sometimes we went out, but usually we just hung out at the table. But she was always trying to get me to go to things. She did get me to go to karaoke once, where I saw Doug serenade her. And she always wanted me to go to the music in the parks at Linden Hills, which was only a few blocks from my house, but I'm a dedicated introvert, and I'm afraid of crowds, and so I didn't ever go there with her, but she told me about it all the time. And we went to a few art shows, some here in this building and some in Plymouth up at the City Hall or something. Every now and then she would want to go outside, so she'd take me to lunch at her favorite Thai restaurant, which was in the neighborhood, but mostly it was peanut butter. Besides art and plants and peanut butter, different styles of course, Carole and I also shared a love of books, albeit different types of books. She read nonfiction, real life, politics, history, biography, and I read fiction, poetry, all that kind of mushy stuff. For some unknown reason, we were always, both of us had the habit of ordering up scads of books at our local libraries. For some unknown reason, we were always astounded when they all seemed to come in at the same time. If you've ever checked out 10 to 20 books at the same time, you know the odds of your getting them all read by their due dates is pretty slim. And it used to be you had to pay fines for those things, and now it's not so. It's easier to keep them longer. I wrote a silly poem about this situation, and Carole printed it out, framed it, and hung it on her kitchen wall, much to my consternation. As far as I know, it's still there. I think I've seen it in pictures recently, just kind of up there on the wall somewhere, off to the right of her wonderful, much more impressive Paul Wellstone poster, which you can see outside, which she covered with pictures of the Wellstone family and buttons from various campaigns. And I know someone's already mentioned it, but I brought pictures from the paper from the last 2 days, which just happened to coincide with her service, about the famous bus that's being refurbished. I'll put them out there so you can see them. Anyway, she would have loved that. Carole had more energy than anyone I've ever known. As far as I know, she never slept. By the time I got up in the morning, she'd already written lots of long emails. Probably a lot of you got those. Done several loads of laundry, made a grocery list, used the percussor machine on her back, gone to the Y to swim, and followed that up by speed walking in the halls. This is all before I ever rolled out of bed. And then, in her spare time, she worked for social justice causes, was active in politics and FUS, traveled all over the country and the world, and spent a lot of time entertaining and celebrating with family and friends on a regular basis. And she even found time to hang out with me every week for years. How lucky we all were to know her. And now I wonder, how do we go on without her? They say the energies of this world do not die. They are merely transformed. So I'm thinking, when the sadness finds me, which it does and will continue to do, I will try to use that energy to do something that she might have done. I could volunteer at a food shelf or help someone register to vote. I could send a card to someone who's tired or sick or ill. Or maybe I'll reach out to someone I don't know very well, like she did to me. And I'll say, hey, we should get together sometime. And then follow through and make it happen. That's what we can do. Thanks.
Memories. Life can never stay the same, no matter how we try. Our hands can never stop the clock of life from ticking by. But love remains unchanging in the care of sorrowing hearts. For as the love of life is stilled, the love of memory starts. Mom, I will remember you, and I miss you every day.
The garden's strength. In the garden where love took root, through life's fierce journey, your greatness grew. You stood for truth, faced battles unseen, a spirit strong, a love that's keen. Your love, a force so pure, so true, a great person through and through. Though you're gone, your memory stays. The garden's strength through darkest days. We'll honor your life, your memory hold, a love unwavering, a story untold. Our dear one, forever near, the garden's strength in memory clear. Thank you.
Grandma Carole has always been a huge inspiration to me. I would brag about her, like a reverse situation of a grandma bragging about her grandchildren. I would probably tell my teachers, my classmates, my friends, my boss, my colleague, et cetera, how my grandma was an activist who made history, that she frequently had pneumonia and still went to the Y to swim every morning. It was a metaphorical, my grandma could beat up your grandma, except, she was such a huge pacifist to the point where she could not watch cell phone games where gems exploded because, it's too violent with the bombs. Grandma Carole leaves a large void, but she was also a motivating force. Now it's our turn and our duty to keep that momentum going forward. Speak out for what you believe in. Vote. Do your best to make the world a better place, and you'll inspire others, and they'll inspire others. Try to make a difference to fill that enormous void at least a little bit, and Grandma's spirit will live on forever. Thanks.
Nightingale.
We're coming to the end of our time together, this time of remembering and celebrating the life of Carole Rydberg. The family is so grateful for your presence here and would love to be able to talk with you at the lunch which follows. As I said, we'll have a mic set up down there for those of you who'd like to share stories, and there's also note cards on the tables that you might want to write a memory to share. In addition to all of that, you're going to be able to enjoy Carole's famous rum cake, at least rum cake made with her recipe. And there will also be some plants that you're invited to take home and to plant in Carole's memory. I'll remind you, for those of you who want to know, you might consider donating to one of her favorite charities in her memory. They were listed as the First Unitarian Society here, Minneapolis Pops Orchestra, Minnesota Public Radio, or the CJD Foundation. I close with these words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, words about how to live a life that is well lived and well loved. To laugh often and love much. To win the respect of intelligent persons and the affection of children. To earn the good opinion of honest critics and to endure the betrayal of false friends. To appreciate beauty. To find the best in others. To give of oneself. To leave the world a little better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To have played and laughed with enthusiasm and sung with exultation. To know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. With these words and with the music that follows, we commend Carole's spirit to the great mystery. May the light that was Carole be always held in your hearts. Blessed be.